Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Amazon sellers got deactivated last Q4. It started on Halloween. Amazon is not a shopping platform. They are a technology company with a shopping platform arm. They're very smart. They're the FBI, the CIA, and they know if you have your uncle's cousin's barber's son ask a question on your listing, Amazon picks that up.
I was 28 and a millionaire. I was 28 and a half and broke.
Pepsi does not spend every dollar that comes in the door. They have a reserve. You must have a reserve.
Are you walking on a tightrope with your Amazon account? One wrong step with reviews or policies, and you could face the nightmare of an account suspension? Are you prepared to protect your business? Well, find out on today's episode. Hey everyone, this is Norm Farrar, aka The Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and the Amazon FBA podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing how Amazon suspensions are destroying sellers. We're going to talk about some of the most common reasons Amazon sellers are getting suspended in 2024, and we're going to look into 2025. Are there any new trends or stricter enforcement in Amazon policies this year? And what are some of the common mistakes sellers are making when appealing suspensions? All right, welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and Amazon FBA podcast.
Lunch with Norm. Lunch with Norm.
All right, like I mentioned, we're going to be discussing suspensions and how Amazon suspensions are destroying sellers and what you can do to improve your account health. All right, but before we get started, I want to make sure that, hey, if you like this podcast, make sure you subscribe to it, ring that bell so you can get notifications, give us a thumbs up, and more importantly, share the episode out. Okay, our guest today is the director of Seller Basics, the leading full-service account health protection plan. She's had decades of experience working in compliance for multiple Fortune 500 companies, as well as 12 years as a multi-platform e-commerce seller. Her in-depth knowledge and expertise in navigating the complexities of the e-commerce marketplace allows her to understand the unique challenges faced by other online sellers. Now, this is a first-time guest, Joy Williams, and she's going to be joining us just after the after the sponsor. Hey, Amazon sellers, are you leaving money on the table with Amazon? Well, TrueOps is here to help you reclaim every last cent you're owed. Over 1,400 brands have already recouped millions with TrueOps cutting-edge technology. Finding reimbursements others may have missed. And guess what? You only pay 10% commission, no more overpaying the industry standard of 25%. Plus, the first $1,000 in reimbursements is free to you. Here's the best part. TrueOps doesn't get paid unless you do. If Amazon ever reverses a claim, TrueOps automatically credits your fees back to you. Now that's peace of mind. Remember, $1,000 free reimbursements to start, then just 10% of successfully recovered funds. You have nothing to lose but the 3 minutes it takes to sign up for a free audit and so much more to gain. Sign up with the link in the description and start reclaiming what's rightfully yours. All right. So if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the comment section. Sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy this episode. Welcome, Joy.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on. This is a great topic. A lot of people don't consider this really a sexy topic, but it's something that we got to talk about. And if you in the know, and if you're listening, you're going to come out of this with some really good pointers and just a little bit more education on suspensions. Let's talk about suspensions. Have you seen a shift from year to year, how Amazon is creating these suspensions and how Amazon sellers have to deal with the suspensions, or are they pretty straightforward?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly in the last couple of years. You know, when I started selling on Amazon in 2012, we didn't have all of this. Really the only thing you had to worry about was if your product had been, recalled by the FDA. Somewhere around 2015, I always say that as resellers, right, who were selling at that time, they either love Elsa or they hate her, because that's when brands really started to get into the fray. When Frozen came out, right? There was so much Frozen on the platform. There was some counterfeit, things like that. Sellers were heavily invested. They either made a ton of money on Elsa or they really had a terrible Q4. And that was sort of the advent of brands really starting to come in and try to bully sellers. But also the stolen goods matter that happened now almost 2 years ago, that if you don't know, there were millions and millions and millions of dollars of products that were stolen on the West Coast in California. Just in one location, they took out $50 million in stolen goods.
So how did that happen?
It was a very massive, sophisticated, theft ring. They were stealing entire cargo loads and trucks and, trailers and things like that. There's a very long article. And if you've never read it, it's worth reading. I think it's CNBC, might be MSNBC. Last summer, a year ago, July, they did a very large story about it. And some brands, I'm not going to name them, but some brands had previously reported their cargo as being stolen. Inventory started showing up on Amazon in large numbers. They placed test buys, and those lot numbers matched up with the stolen inventory. And it was more than one brand, right? So we're talking about tens and tens of millions of dollars in stolen merchandise that really did make its way onto the platform from various wholesalers on the West Coast. So that created a large number of suspensions. Amazon started really looking at where are sellers getting their inventory. Then in January of this year, there was another theft ring, $8 million. This woman had a whole circle of people across the country stealing from Ulta stores. She sold $8 million in stolen merchandise on the platform, right? And so the other thing is this massive advent of wholesalers and distributors. And I use that term very loosely. It's very, very gray market goods. Some of it turns out to be counterfeit. Some of it is an international version of a health and beauty product being sold on a US listing. And so Amazon has really started cracking down. That's why you hear so many of these Section 3s. Most of these Section 3 reviews are they're not precipitated by anything. It's more like a spot check. And the more spot checks that Amazon starts to do, the more things they're finding they don't like, right? So it just becomes a rolling snowball of the onion. They keep peeling it away, and then they're finding things they don't like. They've also changed up some of the requirements, for private label sellers. There's been an increase in the number of times in a year that you have to give them testing docs, right? So there are a number of ways that suspensions have really gone up. The FTC, I'm sure, plays a part in it, right? Things that are going on outside of that. But I also think, especially in terms of this massive, theft ring, that's a huge criminal. Somebody's going to have to answer for that. How did all that get onto your platform? So I think that's playing a part in a lot of it.
There's so many different aspects to suspensions. And if you don't pay attention, Amazon's sellers are just being destroyed. If you're not paying attention, you wake up, you have that horrible email when you wake up that morning. So is there anything we can do to help improve the health of the listings so you don't get those suspensions?
Absolutely. Well, and you hit the nail right on the head. I know that I'm never going to convince an Amazon seller that the first thing they shouldn't do in the morning is to roll over and look at the gold bars on their sales page. That is just what we do as Amazon sellers. But the absolute second thing you should be doing is looking at your account health page. Way too many sellers think of account health as an afterthought. They don't think about it. They don't pay attention. They don't check. They'll say, I'm too busy. I'm sourcing. Well, you're sourcing hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you don't know if Amazon's going to shut the lights off tomorrow because you're not paying attention, right? Your account health is the foundation of your Amazon house. It doesn't matter how big or how small your Amazon house is. It is the greatest equalizer of all Amazon businesses. And I know that sellers think, well, I'm paying them millions of dollars a year in fees. I'm selling $20 million, $50 million a year. They would never. Yes, they would. Yes, they would. So they don't treat anyone any differently.
Right. Anchor got shut down. Loving this episode? Sharing is caring. Don't forget to share this episode and give us a review. Remember the day that they suspended, there's probably at the time their number one seller out there.
Mm-hmm. And they just they don't play favorites in that way,
Yeah.
right? And that's to keep it as an even keel, right? It shouldn't be a pay to play. You would think that there should be some consideration that someone who's really running this, massive brand or whatever, that they would give them a little bit of, well, they're probably doing it right. But more often, what we see, at least in the private label side, is that things mushroom very quickly. Okay. Now I'm going to say something very controversial, and we're, on a recorded thing so people can't throw things at me. Amazon and buyers are not always wrong. I know. As sellers, we get convinced that we are right. Our inventory is correct. We didn't make a mistake, right? There's nothing wrong with our product. But your voice of the customer, right? If you've gotten a defective and they've taken your hero ASIN down, the voice of the customer is the most underutilized tool Amazon's ever given us, right? So when we get a defective or, things like that, they've taken my ASIN down. The first thing I'm always going to ask you for is your VOC and your return report with your customer comments. And 9.5 times out of 10, there it is. Ordered blue, got pink. Ordered blue, got pink. Wrong size. Product leaked, right? So if you're of the mindset that Amazon and the buyers are the enemy, you will become your own worst enemy.
I do have a love-hate relationship, but I also know where Amazon's coming from. But you know what? It's funny that you said that. It's just a quick little story. I was on a podcast. It wasn't this podcast. I was guest on another podcast, and some beard oil came in. So I ordered it while it was on, and while I'm talking, while I'm waiting to talk, I'm looking in the box, and I opened it up, and I noticed this incredible, horrible smell. It was this burlap bag that everything was in, that all my products were in, and I went, "Oh, this smells horrible. It smells like it literally came out of a barn, where it probably did come from." And so when I opened it up, there was the beard oil, there was some beard balm, and there was a comb. First of all, the comb was crap. The second part was I opened up, I put some beard balm on my beard while the podcast is going on. All of a sudden, I started to smell this rotten fish smell. Now, I've said this before, but if you don't order your product, especially if it's a new product coming in, the first time, or if you don't get samples from your supplier, you're in deep trouble, because that's exactly how. So if I don't typically write a bad review, and I didn't for that, but if people got that, they would probably write that bad review, and you'd go, "Oh, this guy's just a competitor." But you got to look exactly what you're talking about. People are going to tell you what's wrong with your product.
Absolutely. And especially for a new product, there's two things about that. That burlap probably didn't smell until it baked in the warehouse for 9 months out of the year, right? And if you're bringing a new product to market, a lot of people are not paying attention to the melting point, right? When you get those first samples, put it outside for 8 hours in the sun, and then bring it in and see what your product looks like, because that is the equivalent of being in an Amazon warehouse in the summer.
Right.
The other thing that sellers get wrong is there are times where your product should be subject to the mountable policy, and somehow it doesn't get flagged. And sellers are doing this dance like, haha, I'm ahead of my competitors because I can be FBA. That almost never works out, right? Whether it's a gummy or a candy or a candle or a lotion or a potion, right? When it is 120 degrees, that policy exists for a reason, right? And just because Amazon didn't flag it, if you know better, get those products out of the warehouse, because those kinds of things do happen. And for resellers, in particular, the candy companies have now started doing test buys in the summer. And you will get a letter from them telling you that you're in violation of Amazon's meltable policy. They also do it for merchant fulfilled, right? And they'll say your candy bars came with no cold packs, right? So brands who generally don't care if you sell their products in Amazon care about how you sell their products on Amazon.
Yeah, another story, but about chocolates. So we've bought like really nice Belgian chocolates, and they've come by Amazon. And for some reason in Canada, I don't get a doorbell. I don't get a package has been delivered. I go outside and it's sitting there. So in the summer, pretty hot here. The Belgian chocolate's no problem because it's packaged in styrofoam. So I thought, well, all candy companies are going to do this. I bought some more Belgian chocolates, and all I did was get a blended big melted chocolate bar. And literally just had that. That one I did write a review about because, it's just a waste. Can't return it. So, yeah, you have to be careful, especially with what you're talking about. Want to learn more about how to navigate legal issues with Amazon? Check out this episode with Paul Raffleson right here. Let's talk a little bit about some other common reasons why Amazon sellers are getting suspended.
Sometimes what it really boils down to is it's a spot check, whether you're a reseller, or a private label seller. For private label sellers, the number one thing to know, if you have a catalog of products, right, and you get a defective or you get a product taken down that says you violated a policy, right? And let's say that you have 20 variations of that product, but they take down one for violating the policy. And it's usually because you have said something that you should not say or cannot say. If you do not clean up that ASIN and your whole catalog, they will fall like dominoes, right? If they catch you doing it over here as part of that review process where you're appealing it, they will go look at the rest of your catalog, right? So sometimes sellers are resistant to making those changes. They'll say, Joy, they didn't tell you those other 19 ASINs. And I will say, ask me in 3 days. I'm telling you now, you have to do this, right? And so then they, it doesn't work out well for them. So you have to make sure if you really are doing something that you're not supposed to do or saying something you're not supposed to do, then when Amazon says, okay, we got you here, you have to do the whole catalog because it'll fall like dominoes. The other thing about that is watch what you're doing on the back end, okay? We still see sellers who are putting their competitors' brand names in their back end. If you do that, and your competitor violates a policy with what they are saying in their listing, you will go down too. You are contaminating your own listing because you are putting their brand name and their detail page is committing a violation. So when they get nabbed, it is going to spill over into you. And, and I know this is a longstanding practice, and I'm not here to try to convince you not to do it. Don't do it. But there are also brands out there who have taken action against other brands for piggybacking onto their names, right? So just know that unless you want to watch their detail pages too and hope that they're not breaking the rules, you will contaminate your own listing, and sellers will say, but where? And I'll go look at their, category listing report and I see that brand name and I go look and I'm like, that's where it is. So be super careful.
Want to enter our live giveaways? Make sure you subscribe to tune in to our live Wednesday episodes at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just talking about that brand name and what we do is we'll go out and ask questions just questions. And sometimes just happens to be the brand name in there of our competitors. And then we can address it. And, why, we might have a better product, or it might be organic, or it might have a bit of this and a bit of that. So that's not bad, right?
Well, I mean, okay. So, and I see a little question popping up. Is it okay to put their name on?
Oh, we'll be talking about
it is a violation across the board to be using your competitor's name for your
keyword. But somebody asks a question about it.
If it happens organically in your Q&A, right? Okay. Where someone will say, how does this compare to X, Y, Z? Be very careful in your answer. Don't say, well, they're inferior because they're X, Y, Z.
Right.
That is considered what they consider abuse and manipulation of your competitors. So you can speak factually, but make the focus not on why their product is inferior, but why yours is better. But just be very careful about what you say.
So
you do not want to
organically. No.
That's part of Amazon. That's the Amazon appeal, right? Yeah. It is. Sometimes Amazon doesn't care what it is. They care what it looks like, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but you want to be careful too, because they're very smart. And what sellers need to remember is Amazon is not a shopping platform. They are a technology company with a shopping platform arm. They're very smart. They're the
Yeah.
FBI, the CIA, number 10 Downing, all rolled into one. And they know if you have your uncle's cousin's barber's son ask a question on your listing for that purpose, they're going to tie you to that person.
Right, right. That comes back to the old PayPal days. Don't pay. This is back when people were incentivizing, and they still do, but you shouldn't. But they were paying through PayPal and they were getting connected. This person is, a cousin or somebody. Yeah, so they stopped dealing with PayPal. That was the big thing back in 2018, 2019. I want to ask a question along the same lines, but for videos. So when we do related videos, we'll do one long spiel. It might be a 3 or 4 minute long video. Then we cut it up, splice it up, and we'll have a bunch of different videos that we can put up in related videos. One of those smaller videos is a comparison. We don't badmouth, but we do put a competitor's like maybe 1 or 2 competitors, and we compare them and we put them up on that related video. Now, I've been told that like influencers, if we give them the 3 products and they do a video, that's cool. That's no problem as long as you don't badmouth. Is that right?
You really, would it be something I'd recommend to even mention them in your video? No, for a couple of reasons. You skirt along the lines of, what Amazon considers abuse. But also, I'm not from a sales and marketing standpoint. Why would you tip your hand to tell somebody the name of a competing product, which they may or may not know exists, and then have them potentially, well, I wonder what that other product is, and then go look it up. Oh, well, you know what? That's a better price. I'm going to buy that one, right? So I'm more of a fan of letting your product stand on its own. I wouldn't name a specific product. I wouldn't show a specific product in a comparison. Back in the day, and I'm going to be dating myself here, the whole Coke and Pepsi wars, right? That was marketing back in the 80s. But if you look at television commercials now, you really don't see that anymore. And so it's not something I would recommend.
Right.
But I do want to say about videos and just overall, right? What gets sellers in trouble? When someone says to you, hey, I have a hack. The word hack should not be part of your Amazon business. Nothing good comes from that. But a lot of sellers have been taught or told that, oh, you can't say that in your listing, for this product that you're trying to kind of skirt the rules with. And I'll give you a specific example. So just say it in your video. Amazon picks that up. Silicone molds for making gummies, right? Where Amazon says you can't have products with THC or that have, pictures of marijuana leaves and all that. So my listing's clean, Joy. They took it down because it's marijuana related and I didn't. And then I go to their brand story and here we are holding up the mold and it's like, for all your THC and CBD needs. They pick up those videos. They can read the text on your images. You can't get away from those kinds of things.
So we're going to go to a sponsor in a second, but just along what we've been talking about, you talked about being flagged, and then all of a sudden that listing goes to a catalog review. What about on your site? So if you do smaller infractions, like your image, and you have a background in your image, something that you shouldn't do, and usually it would just be, okay, I just have to replace that image. Do they take note of that and they start ganging all these things up, and then now from something small it's become something much bigger?
Absolutely. It doesn't it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it stays, part of it depends on how fast you move, right? In fixing it. Because a lot of sellers know what they're doing, right? Now, sometimes this can be a challenge because when you get those kinds of violations, they will lock the listing and then you can't make those edits and it becomes more complicated to get brand registry to help you and things like that. But if you appeal to Amazon and you say, we're compliant and this and that and the other, they expect that to be in an account level. You're talking about an ASIN, but they're looking at your account. So they're going to go look at your other products. And in the same vein, if you are telling Amazon, no, Amazon, this product isn't meant to mock This supplement isn't meant to mock the effects of anabolic steroids. And if I go to your website where you're also selling your product, and it basically says that, Amazon will look at your standalone website and see what you're saying about your product over there. And they will say, we have been able to determine, essentially they'll tell you, elsewhere on the internet, we have determined that you are advertising your product as this, whatever it is they're saying that you shouldn't be doing.
Okay. All right. We are at the bottom of the hour, and there's a bunch of people coming in, listening to the podcast, probably for the first time. So if you are, we have something that we do at the top of the hour, and that's first, answer questions. And secondly, we have something called the Wheel of Kelsey. And that's where our guest usually gives away a prize, a giveaway. Today, we have something awesome, really, really awesome. So Joy, do you want to talk about what you're giving away today?
Yes. So if you don't know what Seller Basics is, Seller Basics is an Amazon account health protection plan. It's not insurance, but it works on an insurance model. We call it assurance. It's a $99 a month membership. All of your account health violations and needs are covered, whether you get, a defective or whether it's a trademark claim or counterfeit, but also it covers you if you get suspended, right? That is all included. And it also, if you're under threat of suspension, those things are all included. So we do have this $99 a month membership, but we are giving away a 1-year membership to someone who is listening today.
That is a great prize. And I know, like, I've talked to Paul, he's been on the podcast before, and I just don't get why people don't get this $99 policy. Because if you all of a sudden get that email, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money than this $99 a month policy that you get. And by the way, if you use code NORM, if you don't win, but if you get code NORM, you get 10% off. Now that's not for a month. That's onwards and upwards. So as long as you use code NORM, you should be able to get that. So I know that there's been a few people that listen to the podcast. I'm not sure if they're on right now, but they have gone to over to Seller Basics and they loved it. Here's the catch. You sign up, it's $99 or $89 code NORM. If you're all of a sudden get that email, it's back to normal fees. So whether
sorry. No. So if you signed up today and you got suspended tomorrow, you are covered.
Right. But I'm talking about if it was 2 days earlier.
So yeah, if you are already suspended or you're under threat of suspension, it is our pre-existing suspension fee, which is, while it is still, one of the least expensive in the space, it is $2,700.
Yeah.
But if you signed up today and it happened tomorrow, then you're covered.
Right. So that's something to think about. I know I've talked about that many times on the podcast. So get this I can't say insurance. Get the assurance of the $99 policy, $89 if you put code NORM in. Okay, so now let's go over to a sponsor. Hey, Amazon, Walmart, and TikTok sellers, we're in Q4 and I know the pressure's on. So how do you rank higher and sell more during the busiest time of year? Well, as a certified Amazon partner agency, AZRank has the expertise and proven strategies to take your projects to the top, driving visibility and sales across all platforms. With a proven expertise in optimizing search rankings, AZRank guarantees your products stand out during this critical shopping season. You can email AZRank today at hello@azrank.com. That's AZRANK.com. And don't forget to mention the Beard Guy sent you, and that's going to unlock an exclusive discount. Okay, before we get into any other questions, anything else that we can do about talk about any common reasons why sellers are getting suspended? Are there any more? Have we covered them?
I will tell you that, there's a lot of, and it's been this way for years. Oh, I'm hands off now. I've delegated all my tasks. There is delegating, right, to get time back, but there is delegating to degradation. You still have to keep your eye on the prize, right? Whether it's a stateside employee, a VA, you cannot turn the keys to your kingdom over no matter how much you trust your employees, you still have to come in and take a look around, right? Especially as a reseller. If you have an employee that is responsible for choosing your products, buying your products, listing your products, and handling your account health, human nature says they're less likely to run to you and say, hey, I made a bad buy. I put it on a bad listing. Now I got your account in trouble. Certainly not when it happens more than once, right? So you still have to kind of keep a little skin in the game. And even if it's just once a week, you need to put your eyes on your Amazon account and what's happening to it. And you have to read your Amazon emails. I know there's a lot of them, but the number of people who say, I've never heard anything from Amazon on this. This just came out of the blue. And I say, can you go to your email program and drop the ASIN in? Warning, warning, warning. Notice and deactivate. It was all there.
Okay, very good. Now let's talk about trends or new stricter enforcement of any policies this year.
Should we talk about the bundle policy?
Yeah, we can do that.
We'll talk about two things. One, for sellers who don't know or have not heard, now this is not a new policy, but the enforcement of this policy is now much more widespread. A lot of sellers are waking up and going, I was supposed to get $25,000 in 2 days. Why does it say zero? There is a policy referred to as DD+7, or the delivery date policy. What that policy says is that you will get your money 7 days post-delivery date. The policy has been around for years, but it was not used to the degree that it is now. October 1st, they started rolling it out, right? So some sellers really are waking up expecting to get a huge pot of money in a couple of days and finding out it is now their delivery date. So if that happens, you need to just go look at your pending and then click on that dollar amount. And when you click on it, you're going to see deferred transactions, and you can click on it. It's going to tell you what that release date is. So a lot of people are waking up panicking, thinking that they've just been suspended and that's why the funds are at zero. But it really is the delivery date +7.
Okay.
Now, the new bundle policy.
Yeah.
You know, I started selling on Amazon in 2012, like horse and buggy days. We didn't even have an app. So when people say, oh, this bundle policy is new, parts of this bundle policy are not new. It is them putting things back into the policy that used to be in the bundle policy. The old bundle policy said you couldn't mix brands. You couldn't do a bundle of Kleenex and Puffs or Glade and Airwick. Then they took that out, right? And the catalog has become cannibalized by bad listings, right? And sellers who are doing nothing more than putting a sticker in with the Heinz ketchup and calling it, you know, Bob's Condiments, and then also filing against other sellers. They say they're the brand and the manufacturer. None of that was correct to begin with. So, and brands really do file intellectual property complaints against sellers for those kinds of listings. You won't hear sellers who are big in that space tell you that, but I'm here to tell you it is true, right? So Amazon has a couple of weeks ago put out an updated bundle policy, and they said, okay, sometime in mid Q4, we're going to start enforcing it. And we have seen some of those come down. The other night, they updated the policy again. One of the things I want to tell you about that policy is because there seems to be confusion. Amazon uses the word consumables a lot in the policy. And people are like, why are they using Dawn dish soap as an example in the policy? You know, if it's consumables. Consumables doesn't just mean food in this context. A consumable is any product that is meant to be used up and discarded. Dish soap, toothpaste, lotion, those are all consumables. So what they are saying now is they've rolled it back. You can't do a bundle of Coke and Pepsi, for example, right? You can do a bundle of products that are with an LOA that are made by the same manufacturer. So they've really cracked down on the policy, and you should be very careful about what you're listing on for those reasons. So people need to know now, moving forward, you can't take 2 bottles of Dawn dish soap and call them a bundle unless you went to, let's just say, Costco and bought them as a 2-pack from the manufacturer. So a lot of listings, and they published a date the other night, January 1st, the enforcement is going to happen for ones that have not already been taken down. And so you will get emails about Amazon for bundles that are no longer compliant. A lot of sellers are like, well, I'm going to find a way to do it. But again, trying to go around Amazon policies is not going to end well. And people keep saying, do you think they're really going to enforce it? I really do. There's been a discussion with Amazon for a long time about, you know, the catalog really is cannibalized by these kinds of listings, and not all of them are good listings. And it's not fair to other sellers, right? If you're buying Dawn dish soap wholesale, to have somebody take the real UPC for that product and put up a listing under their brand registry with a sticker, right, that says Clean Kitchen and calling it their own. So the bundle, I know people are upset about the bundle, but in the grand scheme of things, it will actually help a lot of sellers.
Okay. Very good. All right, let's start talking about some of the top strategies for maintaining a healthy Amazon account.
So the number one thing I want to tell you is when you go and you see a violation on your account health page and it says no impact, except for the new takedowns of these bundles, right? Those really won't affect it. It says that right in the notice. But even if it says no impact, do not believe Amazon about that. If you are selling Nike, for example, and you get one inauthentic, it's generally going to say low or no impact. But if you don't resolve it, you're going to lose your ability to sell Nike, right? So you should address everything that you can. Now, are there some things that can't be fixed and you have to wait them out 180 days? Yes, but don't be fooled by the fact that it says no impact. You have to read the whole notice. And you have to read those notices because sometimes those notices, particularly for a restricted product, give you very specific instructions. And if you do not follow those instructions, then you really can become deactivated, right? If it is a recalled product, it is going to tell you in there, you must close and delete, don't ship any orders. And some people are just like, restricted product, I don't care. The other thing about that is, and I know this is a sensitive topic, but over the last few months, we all get, high price errors. And a lot of sellers are just like, whatever. You now have to read those Amazon notices because in a very small handful of cases, those notices from Amazon have used the dreaded words price gouging. So you want to make sure that you're reading each notice, right, to ensure that you know exactly what's happening. You can't just take it for granted that it's the same as another one.
I'm just kind of curious. I'm a big filter person. So I want my inbox clean, but I also want it to alert me when there's something urgent or something I need to pay attention to. Is there a list of high priority keywords that somebody could put into a list, like into a filter, that could be filtered out of your inbox and sent over to you as a notice that, price gouging, I got to check this email?
I would say section 3 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it is off the top of my head. I want to say F7, which is the unsuitable inventory. That is something that is a very kind of serious, it's not like a phrase that they use in every single email, right?
Right.
Like if you put in inauthentic or counterfeit or trademark even, you would get almost every violation that you ever got. So section 3 for sure. I would want to see price gouging. I would pay attention to restricted product. If you are a private label seller, particularly in the supplement space, you would put in FDA, right? Same if you're a health and beauty private label seller. A lot of folks get themselves into a situation because they have an unregulated product, but they say something about it that makes it now a product that would be regulated, right?
Right.
There are plenty of cosmetics and things that are not, but if you say anti-wrinkle or anti-aging, now you're under the FDA's purview. And if you don't know, right, especially if you're a new private label seller, if you're working with someone to help you along the way, ask them specific questions. What does the FDA say? But really, this is a case where the FDA and Google are your best friends because you can say, whatever my product is, FDA requirements or, FDA guidelines. And the FDA is very clear, about saying, okay, you can say this, you can't say this. If it's this, it's that, right? So you want to find those things out. This is important for private label sellers. You need to find these things out before you go to production. You need to find them out, right? We have seen this. It happens probably once a month. Something crosses my desk. Technically, you shouldn't be putting mock-ups of your product up anyway, right? But what happens is some sellers will put up a mock-up of their supplement, for example, and it says it has prohibited claims on it. You can poison that ASIN forever because they'll say, well, I'll just change my label. But what Amazon says back to you is, but you already said this is what it is, or that's what it does. So now you have to reformulate because that's what you told us that product is. So don't leap to putting mock-ups of a product label up on Amazon until you are 100% sure that you are completely compliant and you are really ready to go.
That's such good advice. Very good. All right. So I just see that there's a few questions that have come in. We'll get to that in a second. I guess our last question that I have for you is if there's one piece of advice that you'd wish every Amazon seller would start to follow, what would it be?
Honestly, for it's two different answers for depending on what kind of seller you are. If you are a reseller, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If you have a quote unquote wholesaler that has 100,000 bottles of Dove body wash at a price that makes the margins ridiculous, you need to ask yourself why. You need to be concerned about gray market goods. You need to be concerned about formula and packaging and size changing, right? That too many sellers get dollar signs in their eyes and they put their whole account at risk for both private label and resellers. Those gold bars on your sales page, the only ones that matter are yours. Okay. Run your own race. Sellers who are trying to get where sellers who have been in the game for a long time are now, as quickly as they can, are the most likely to find themselves out of business. You have to roll your snowball. You have to be careful in what you're doing. You cannot leap from zero in sales to being a $5 million a year seller in 1 year unless you get very lucky, right? Do those things really happen? Yes. Does it happen all the time? No. And in terms of just compliance overall, again, when people are talking about hacking and how can I get around, the rules are what the rules are, and you're only going to harm yourself. And the number one thing for Amazon sellers to know is for too many years in this space, right? Tell me if I'm wrong here, Norm. Amazon sellers will tell you, don't take any money out of your business. You don't pay yourself. You put every penny back in the business. You spend it all on new inventory. That is a flat out lie. And that information ruins people's lives every day. Pepsi does not spend every dollar that comes in the door. They have a reserve. You must have a reserve for your business and for yourself if this is your only source of income now. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Amazon sellers got deactivated last Q4. It started on Halloween. The number of sellers who go bankrupt, they can't make their minimum credit card payments. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay the kids' tuition. They can't buy Christmas presents, right? And if you are relying on your credit cards and you say, well, I pay them off every month, but that's because you're getting an Amazon payout every month. If you get deactivated or under threat of deactivation and Amazon puts a stop to your payments and you cannot pay your minimum credit card payments for a couple of months, let's say, while your suspension may go on, Amex and Capital One are going to get their money. Okay.
Yep.
There are personal guarantees. I hear that all the time. People say, I'll just declare bankruptcy on my LLC. Most of those credit cards have a personal guarantee, right? Yep. But again, even if you get back, you've lost those $100,000 credit limits because you didn't make your payments, right? So when you hear people say never take a penny out of the business, okay, then leave it in the business account, but you must have a reserve and a personal reserve if this is how you pay the bills. Nothing breaks my heart more than sellers who lose everything.
It can happen. I 100% agree with you. And if you're not doing that, when you go to sell your business, first of all, that's a really bad sign. You've got to pay yourself back, but buyers are going to be looking for that. Are you taking money out of the business? If you're just putting money back in and you're growing, your inventory is expanding, so you have to expand. There's other ways of doing things. We've talked about it time and time again on the podcast about how you can get better cash flow. You got to start thinking about that and start paying yourself. But yeah, great advice. Okay, we have a few questions.
Okay, so our first question is from Trevor. He says, I have a lot of ASINs with geographic restrictions. When I face a suppression, seller support tells me that they won't reinstate ASINs because of the restrictions, despite the fact that it's sellable.
So most of the time, Amazon gets geographic restrictions right, but not always. We saw this a few months ago with plants and seeds, right? There are geographical restrictions, like, for example, Arkansas plants and seeds. There are a number of things that you can't sell plants and seeds into Arkansas. Washington, there are certain kinds of requirements for wipes, whether it be baby wipes or face wipes, makeup remover. The packaging has to have a certain label on it. They have to be certain, I don't know off the top of my head, biodegradable, or they can't be sold there, right? But a geographical restriction should not affect the overall saleability. And if they're saying, no, if they're getting it wrong and they're saying it can't be reinstated at all, then that's a matter of getting the appeal right. And you can't just say to them, I can't just write an appeal that says, no, that's not correct. You have to be factual and data driven. And, that's why, the appeals that we write are very bespoke. What is the situation? What is your product? What are they doing? How do we fix it? Sometimes it's born out of a product being miscategorized somewhere in the browse node, right? So there are a number of ways that we can try to address those kinds of things.
All right. Next question is from Steve. Are you allowed to put your competitor's name as misspellings? So it's not the exact brand name.
Technically, no. And I don't recommend it because then Amazon can also say that you're misbranding, right? It's really a situation where in any way, shape, or form, whether it's in your PPC or the back end of your listing, I'm not in favor of putting your competitors' names in there in any way, shape, or form. In part because we do see a lot of cases where a product gets taken down because it's the competitor that they're referencing who is committing policy violations on their listing. And so you're poisoning your well.
Okay, and our last comments and questions are from Amari. She says, I wonder if you can use ChatGPT to help with this as well. And I read about having business reserves in the book Profit First. I highly recommend it. They talk about making sure you have money for your business saved.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't stress that enough. And, the demographic of Amazon sellers' ages are it's getting lower and lower. And, as a person of a certain age with kids in their 30s, nothing breaks my heart more than to see these 23-year-old kids, right, who have now ruined their financial future for the next 7 to 10 years, right? I don't care what you see on Instagram, right? I mean, I see Instagram, Amazon influencers all the time that I know have been banned from Amazon, and there they are leaning on the Lambo, right? Again, if it seems too good to be true, this is true when it comes to the wholesalers and distributors. Amazon does not consider other sellers to be a valid source of inventory, okay? So if you have someone who's claiming to be this gigantic Amazon seller and trying to sell you inventory, look, in the history of selling on Amazon, nobody sells their stock to their competitor, right? We're not making competition for ourselves. Something is wrong there.
Mhm.
So just be very leery of those kinds of things. The
Yeah,
same
what
is true for sellers at the upper end, of the age bracket who have maybe dipped into their retirement funds, right?
Yeah.
You have to be so careful about what you're doing.
Yeah, I fell into that back, and it's in the newsletter, the whole story. I've talked about it on the podcast, but I was 28 and a millionaire. I was 28 and a half and broke. I had to declare bankruptcy. And those were 7 tough years. Now I worked out of it. I got the business going within the 7.5 years to get going again. But it is a stress that you do not want to have.
It really is. I mean, these examples that I'm giving, these are like real life examples. People last December, my lease was up at the end of the year. I already said I was moving in January, and now I don't have my deposit for the new place. I have to take my child. I have to tell them they can't go back after Christmas break because I no longer have their January tuition.
Yeah.
Right. These things really do happen. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I think selling on Amazon is the greatest job in the world, except for mine. Right? Because my job is to help you protect that dream. Other than that, it is the greatest job in the world. But again, it is a job.
Yeah.
This is where I differ with a lot of what you hear out there. It's not a job. It's a job, right? Your job is to build your business. It is still a job. It is still work, right? So just remember, slow and steady really does win the race. And I don't care what your competitors are doing, because when your account gets suspended or your products or you lose everything, they're not going to come pay your mortgage, right? Let them do them, but they're breaking the rules and they're getting ahead of me. That will not last forever. They will not get away with it forever. Amazon always comes knocking.
Okay. Now we're going to go to the Wheel of Kelsey in a second. Joy, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Seller Basics, and then we'll head over to the wheel.
Okay, so Seller Basics was founded in 2020 by Paul Rafelson of Rafelson Law. If you don't know Paul, he's been on Norm's podcast.
My cigar buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most brilliant e-commerce attorneys in the country, right? You can go look at the news tab and his name. So it was really meant to sort of disrupt that industry that you were talking about earlier, where, certainly in 15, 16, it was nothing to hear people say that they paid $5, $10, $15,000 to get their account back. And with this, insurance model, right, for the program to be as expensive, Paul really set out to disrupt that, industry. He knew there had to be a better way, because when you are suspended and there's no money coming in, this is not the time to have to, put out $15,000 for help, right?
Right.
So Seller Basics is not a law firm. However, we do have network attorneys, including Paul and his law firm, who assist our members with various issues. If you got an intellectual property claim, right, from a brand that said you're violating their trademark or selling counterfeit, our network attorneys will reach out to the rights owner to try to resolve it, while our account health team writes that appeal for you to submit to Amazon. Because not everything's going to get retracted, not everything's going to get accepted. So we do both of those things simultaneously, which is important. A lot of people will say, oh, if we can't get anywhere with the rights owner in a few weeks, then we'll give you an appeal. We think you do both of those things at the same time, because Amazon can't see those conversations going on with a rights owner behind the scenes for a couple of, and so the other thing is that you can have free consultations with Paul. Paul's also a tax attorney, right? Maybe you started your business under your social security number. Now you want to get an LLC. Well, where's the best state for me to incorporate? What are the tax implications of this? Things like that. Maybe you have a brand and, Paul does a lot in the mergers and acquisition space, right? For sellers who've built their brand and now want to sell it, right? And getting ahead of that process. Hey, things are going really well. I think I might want to sell this one day. Get on a free call with Paul as part of your membership and make sure that you're getting your ducks in a row. You get a discount on services like trademark registration and things like that. But kind of everything that happens to your Amazon from account health standpoint is covered under your membership. The caveat to that is patent disputes. We don't do patents. That's something you can have a call with Paul about. And you get the suspension coverage. And that's not, here's your one suspension appeal. If it's denied, we will continue to try to appeal with Amazon for as long as we believe there is hope. Now, we also help sellers who are not already in the program, right? That's a higher fee. But you will see what kind of separates us from some of our competitors. You can't go to sellerbasics.com if you're suspended and push a button and give us that $2,700. You can fill out a form. We can take a look at what happened. We can look at your documents. We will not take your case and we will not take your money if we do not think that we can help you.
All right.
We only take cases for sellers that we believe that we have a possibility to help them.
And that's at sellerbasics.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, and why doesn't Paul give me a break like that? Jeez, he always charges me for calls. Just joking. All right. And you know what's really great about doing a podcast is when you see first time listeners. So I hope I say this right. Kalu, thank you very much. If you tag two people, you'll get a second entry, Kalu. So that's something we do here as well. So let's go over to a sponsor, head over to the wheel, and then we'll wrap this up.
Start, scale, exit, repeat. I'm Colin C. Campbell, and I've started over a dozen multi-million-dollar companies in the last 30 years. I spent the last 10 years writing the book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, to figure out what it is that these serial entrepreneurs do over and over again. We interviewed over 200 people. We created 58 chapters, over 30 illustrations, 180 callouts, and we quite frankly made this book for the ADHD entrepreneur. It's been #1 on Amazon in 15 categories and has won 12 awards globally. Get your book today, either on ebook, paperback, hardcover, or Audible on Amazon or your favorite bookstore.
We recorded that about a month ago, and maybe 2 months ago. And since that time, he's won 22 awards.
Wow.
And just to let you know, I think most of the people who have been listening to the podcast before, Kevin King and I have a company called Dragonfish, and we're building out this business plan. I've built out plenty of business plans before. Kevin's done the same thing, but we're using his approach, and he's got workbooks that he's got all these AI prompts that he's pre-prompted, and just going through his methodology, and it's fantastic. So if you haven't checked out Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, head over to Amazon. There's all sorts of different, you can get it on Kindle, softcover, hardcover, you can get it on Audible. Highly suggest it. And there are workbooks, so you can take each module and just go through them as you build out your plan. And if you think you're not an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur if you're an Amazon seller and you need a business plan. Okay, let's go over to the wheel.
It's time for the Wheel of Elsie.
All right. Well, let's shuffle these up. If you are the winner, please email me k@lunchwithnorm.com and we'll connect you with your prize. And it looks like
Look at that.
Trevor
gets it. Congrats, Trevor. That is a great prize today.
All right. Just make sure you email me k@lunchwithnorm.com for your prize, and congratulations.
That's exciting. Welcome to Seller Basics, Trevor.
Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you so much, Joy. I think, if I remember right, we met at Kevin's Christmas party.
Yes, and we see each other at Prosper.
Yep, yeah. But I
We'll
think
see
the last
each
time
other
was,
in just a couple of months already. It'll be here
Yeah.
before we know it. Yeah.
so we will see you there. And thank you so much. You dropped a lot of knowledge today. Awesome prize. And yeah, tell Paul that I'm looking forward to our next cigar.
I will. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, we'll see you later. Okay, if you're looking for the newsletter, lwn.news, and we're doing great with that. A lot of people are signing up every week. We're constantly seeing an uptick in new subscribers. So thank you so much, everybody. Also, if you want a little bit more of Lunch with Norm or the group, we have a very active WhatsApp group. Just go to Lunch with Norm. There's an invite there, and just let us know if you want to be invited into the group. And very active. You never know if you're going to see 50, 60 comments or 10 comments every day. It's there's a lot of questions and a lot of answers being solved over there. And you also got our Facebook group.